What are you doing as a government to bring inflation down? Just briefly, if you could.
Yeah, what I'm doing is controlling public spending to make sure that we don't do anything that adds fuel to inflation. But of course, we welcome these figures. There's no complacency, though, here in the Treasury. We work very closely with the bank. As you say, they do interest rates. We do government spending. But these are tough times for families in the UK, but we're going to be relentless in our commitment to halve inflation and get it down to the long-term trend of 2%.
But, John, are you going to do anything actively to reach your #1 target of halving inflation by the end of the year? For example, ex-Bank of England policymaker Kate Barker suggested you should raise taxes.
Well, look, we don't want to raise taxes. What we're trying to do is make sure that we spend money wisely. We had a spending review a few years ago. Obviously, meeting those numbers is now really hard in a high inflationary or higher inflationary environment. So my job is to make sure that we spend wisely, that we accommodated the pay review body announcements last week for public sector pay. That increased between 6.5%, 7% for one of the workforces. We did that not by taxing more, not by borrowing more, by asking government departments, by asking cabinet ministers to absorb that additional pay requirement. So we're being relentless in focusing on making sure that we manage public spending and don't add to the inflationary pressure, which the IMF and others have warned us we would do if we borrowed more.
And, John, even though these numbers are a pleasant surprise, Bloomberg Economics still reckons we're going to have a recession here in the UK. Markets see a 50% chance of a 50 basis point hike from the Bank of England again at its August meeting. Do you see a risk that the Bank of England overdoes it?
Look, I'm not commenting on the Bank of England. They make judgments independently. My job is to focus on government spending, public spending as Chief Secretary. That's what I do. I also don't make predictions about the future economy. When I came into office 9 months ago in this role, I noticed various predictions about whether or not we were going to have a recession. I see those come and go. What I've got to do is relentlessly focus on the job to help bring inflation down using the levers that I have as Chief Secretary, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
What's your assessment of why the UK inflation story appears stickier than other parts of the G7? I mean, Germany's inflation 6.4, France 5.3, the US 3%, Italy in the 6s, Canada 2.8, Japan 3.2. Ours is falling. It's come in lower than anticipated, but it's still higher than all of those. What is the government's assessment of why that is?
Well, I think Germany's inflation rate went up in June, and obviously they're in recession. Every economy is finding this challenging. I do recognise that there are some differences, and obviously that will be about the way the labour market works. So we've obviously made some supply side changes to try and get more people into the labour market without creating inflationary pressures. Also, the effect of the tripling of gas prices had a different effect on here in the UK as compared to the US and some of the other economies. But I think what is acknowledged is that, that we're on the same path as many of the European economies. We're just a few months behind them in some cases.